Joyce, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Your breast cancer diagnosis was a little different than the average woman's diagnosis. Can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Sure. Well, I don't think that anybody has a diagnosis that runs swimmingly because nobody ever wants it, right? For me, I was really young. I was 36 at the time. I had gone to my doctor's office and I knew that we had a family history for colon cancer. And I was a biology girl, so I knew that hereditary cancers could be a thing. So when they were talking about, this genetic link, I thought, hey, should I take that genetic test? Maybe I have this mutation for colon cancer. And because it was all throughout my family. And he said, yeah, you're a good candidate. Let's do it. Well, there was, they tested for a bunch of different potential mutations. And so I like to say that the BRCA mutation, which is one of the ones that makes you more susceptible for breast cancer, they're rare, but if you have them, then you're at an elevated risk. So no history of breast cancer in my family. What are the odds? Like, I'm not worried about that one at all. It was kind of a bonus test. And so they called me with the results and I was negative for that colon cancer mutation. And surprise, surprise, I was positive for the BRCA2 mutation, which meant that anything over 20% is considered high risk. And with this mutation, I ended up having an 84% chance of getting breast cancer. So that set me off on increased screenings. So if you're at high risk, they'll do alternating every 6 months between mammograms and MRIs. So I immediately had my first mammogram and I had dense tissue. It missed it. And 6 months later, I had an MRI, which was just screenings again, because I had this elevated risk. And that's when they found that I had 3 masses.
Wow. So you went from just taking a, little precaution to make sure nothing's wrong to getting a full-blown, diagnosis that you never even were really checking for in the first place.
Not at all. Breast cancer was not something that was in my family. I was not worried about that one in the slightest. Not at all.
Wow. So once you get that diagnosis, can you walk me through the process after that?
Sure. So I found out that I had the mutation, meant that I was at the elevated risk. Come to find out, I actually ended up having cancer. And so then, okay, when somebody tells you you have cancer, the first thing you think is get it out of me, right? Like, I don't want to, you hear cancer and you're immediately afraid, like, let me live. I don't want that in me, get it out. And that was more or less the treatment plan for me. It started, I had to have surgery first. So in a 10-month period, I had a bilateral mastectomy, which basically means that they take both. And the reason why is because I had that high elevated risk. Not only did they need to remove the cancer, but because I had such a high risk, that risk was within any breast tissue that I had. So they had to remove that. And then when they did that surgery, it dropped my risk to like below 10. So, that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
So had the bilateral mastectomy, had reconstruction, and then also had to have, as part of treatment, I had to have chemotherapy and radiation. And then ended up also having to have a hysterectomy because of the BRCA2 mutation. It's not really something that they do for breast cancer, but they do if you are a BRCA patient.
So you found out about that BRCA2 mutation because of genetic testing. Do you recommend for anyone out there that's listening right now to make sure they get that genetic testing because, you never know? Or what is your recommendation there?
So I'm a huge advocate for know your own geography. Information is empowering. So ask the questions. I can't tell people exactly what's the right answer for them, but you do have to gather your data, right? And information isn't something that we should be afraid of. Information is what allows us to have the tools to be able to better make informed decisions for us. And know your risk, right? So I say that because there's a couple of things to think about here, right? Like, first of all, my family because I have a risk. Like I used to teach biology. So, I joke like, hey, kids would always say, hey, when am I going to ever use this in my life? Right. Well, knowing biology could actually one day save your life, right? Like knowing the risk, knowing, okay, if I have it, who in my family is at risk? What does it mean? It means that my kids each have a 50% chance. It means that until I found out who it came from, it had to have come from my mom or my dad. I had to have gotten it from one of them. And we suspected that it came from my dad, but we weren't certain until he ended up later on doing genetic testing and come to find out, well, who then is at risk over there? Well, of course, any of my siblings, they're at risk and their kids are at risk until they know whether or not the parent has it. If it came from my dad, then any of his siblings are at risk and their descendants, unless they do the test and find out that they don't. So for example, if my cousin does the genetic testing and finds out that she doesn't have the mutation, then her kids aren't at risk. But that doesn't mean that her sister or her brother are not, right? Because that's just how genetics works. So it's important to understand that, to know where your risk factor is if you have somebody in your family that's been diagnosed with it. Yeah. And then also just knowing like, okay, well, what are the laws at that time, at that given point? The biggest question people ask me is, well, I recommend my daughters, for example, to do the testing. Well, again, back to information is empowering. I want them to be able to make the best decision for them, but they have to weigh several different things, right? My understanding is that they're able to use the fact that I was diagnosed as, what is it? Like, I think it's 10 years prior to my diagnosis date, they're allowed to start doing screenings. Okay. So they can start doing screenings before the recommended age of 40. Well, if they do the testing and they come out, this is how the current laws, last I looked, were written. They may have changed, and they will likely change by the time my kids are old enough. But the way the law was written at the time was that if they do the testing and you find out that you don't have the mutation, that's good news. You don't want the mutation. But then that means that you get thrown into the general population's risk and you have to wait till you're 40 for a baseline. But if you do the testing and you find out that you do have the mutation, then it's possible you could be denied life insurance. So not health insurance, but life insurance. So what do you do with that? I don't know all the ins and outs. That's just what I had heard. So before I would make a solid recommendation for any one person, including my kids, I would say gather your data, right? Yes, information empowers us. Yes, it's worth knowing because then you can make the best decisions for your body. But you have to weigh everything. So it's worth doing the collection of all data in order to make that more informed decision.
Shifting back to your battle with breast cancer,
Sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about the story of your Lighthouse moment?
That's it's a really special moment. It's I hadn't thought about that moment in a long time, but it's really kind of cornerstone for giving me hope and giving me strength to making through it. And then where that kind of took me off and founding this organization that we have here in Savannah called Keepers of the Flame Foundation. But the story goes, first of all, I wanted to be that stoic, I've got this, like, life can be hard, but it's not going to knock me down, right? Okay, well, there's truth. Life is hard. But the part I missed was it's okay if it knocks you down. Like, it's not realistic and human to expect yourself never to feel the thud of the ground. So that being said, when I was first going through it, I was kind of giving myself a hard time for being, in my eyes, less than perfect of how I was handling it. Like, if I fell apart, somehow I get mad at myself for that. I've learned the hard way that's not fair and that's not true. But in this particular moment, I was in the bathroom. I had just had my mastectomy. So, and for those that don't know, when they do the surgery, there's an incision that goes all the way across the curvature of your breast. And so I had that on both sides. It's raw. You can see the stitches. You can see the glue. I mean, it looks like a wound. It's a wound. They're giant wounds. And so I looked in the mirror for the first time. And when I saw myself, I didn't recognize who I was. And I started to fall apart. It was this profound grief, right? And to grieve is to also be human. Like, that's not something to be ashamed of. But at that moment, I was feeling that, and I started to fall apart. And I looked on my friends had given me a charm, and I put my hand on the edge of the sink. And as I was getting ready to kind of try not to fall apart, I looked down and I saw this charm, and it was a lighthouse. And that lighthouse reminded me that I wasn't alone. It reminded me of all the people who had come before me, who had weathered their own storms. And it just kind of had this soft whisper of hope. You're not alone, right? And then the idea started to, the metaphor kind of took form a little bit more about how every person who has been there, who's done that, every person who has supported somebody along the way, it helps to brighten this light out in this distance, so that the person who's traveling through it feels less alone, hopeful. The sea may be scary, but there's light in the distance, and you just have to keep swimming.
And from that moment, when did the idea of starting Keepers of the Flame come about?
It was not like a just, switch on off, right? It kind of grew over time. Some of the key parts were, because like I said, I wanted to be the poster child. I got my life together, and I kept falling apart. And then of course I'm beating myself up because I'm like, well, I should be doing this better. I wish I was stronger. All these things that are unrealistic. And I found myself in counseling, and I remember feeling so much relief being able to have this place that I could go to kind of sort through, to realize that everything that I was feeling didn't make me weak. It didn't make me less than. It made me human. And it wasn't about avoiding that fall, as I spoke about before. It was about when we fall apart, what do we choose to do next? Right? And that has a lot of power. And so I remember learning so much, not only about these, giving myself permission to feel, permission to fall apart, that it didn't make me weak. Because that's something I was terrified about as a cancer patient. Like, I can't be weak, because what does it mean if you're fighting for your life and you're weak? You immediately think, I'm not going to make it, right? So I had to, in counseling, give myself permission. No. Being human, feeling is not weakness. And so I learned a lot of really great life lessons there. Not only that, but I also learned some really empowering coping strategies for me, like ones that worked for myself. When I used to teach kids, how you learn is important, because once you know how you learn, then you can actually learn. So same thing here. Once you learn how to process through big, giant emotions that maybe you haven't dealt with before, first of all, it doesn't make anything wrong with you. And second of all, what are some things that work for you? And what works for you might be different than what works for me, which is why counseling was so powerful. So I started to realize the huge need and importance of having mental health support because of what it was doing for me through it. And I remember sitting in session going, why don't people know about this? Why don't they talk about it? Why isn't this something that people have access to when they're diagnosed? Because it's so helpful. And so then that was like the first giant seed getting planted. And then moving forward, I got this incredible team. And with the vision of the Lighthouse and the idea of trying to get counseling out there for other people, we founded the organization. And we actually even did a research study where we investigated what is it that breast cancer patients think about having physicians referring them to counseling. Because obviously I think it's a great idea. But just because I think it's a great idea doesn't mean that's what everybody says. So we actually did a study on that to see like, okay, well, what are other breast cancer patients saying? And the more I started to talk to people and the more we started to uncover this truth, this is like one of the things. It's normal to feel these intense emotions, and everything that I was saying and feeling, I kept hearing again and again. And when I would talk to these women and I would say, hey, listen, no, you're not alone. It was like this great relief that they were feeling, like, oh, okay, well, now what? And so trying to connect them to getting that professional support.
Right. And I read that you kind of provide the full gamut of that support. You've got yoga that you've, provided like free yoga classes, free therapy sessions. You guys, like you said, provide the money for those sort of things. But you even took it a step further and created your own course, right? Can you tell me about that?
So yes, so we got several things on our website that are there to support. Our mission is to empower breast cancer patients physically and emotionally to weather their storm. And so our two big meat and potatoes for our organization is, one, the mental health piece, which is getting them access to that professional therapy, and two is the physical support, which is we do have a hardship support program where we partner with the local hospitals, and we provide some visa cards, and we work directly with the social workers. Like, what is the need of the patient at that time, right? Do you are they needing help with groceries? Are they needing help with bills? More like physical tangibles. To talk to about what you were talking about the course and stuff, these are some of our like little satellite things that we have that support those big meat and potatoes. So the course that that we developed, it's a resilience curriculum. It's free. I dove into the research, and I wanted to know, in order to be resilient, to have this post-traumatic growth, what do you need? Don't just tell me be happy. Don't just tell me be positive. But how on earth do I stinking do that? Right? Give me the step-by-step tools, the guidelines, in order to piece that together. So I dove into the research, did a little bit of learning about the brain, which as a biology major is great. You want to talk cells, great. But when it came to understanding my emotions and my mind and all that's going on with that, that was new for me. So I dove into that, learned that a little bit more, put together a video to try to explain it to other people. And then where there's power with that is if you know how your brain is processing through trauma, then what can you do? What are some pathways that you can build in your own brain to be able to set yourself up for optimal growth, post-traumatic growth? And so we created this curriculum and put it up on our website. It's free. And then the yoga, as you mentioned, that's through a partnership that we had with a local organization. So we also have, like I said, those little satellite things that are free and up on our website for anybody to access. Some of them are through things that I had researched and done, like the podcast and the curriculum. And then others are through partnerships that we have with local businesses and organizations that have said, hey, let's help you support patients in this way.
There's a quote that I came across. I don't know if it came from you or it was just something that somebody, wrote about Keepers of the Flame, but it greatly impacted me when I came across it. And I want your opinion on, at least, I guess, how it makes you feel. And that is, physically cured, but emotionally broken. What does that statement mean to you?
Physically cured and emotionally broken. That is very powerful and so, so true. Because so when you're diagnosed with cancer, like I said, your first goal is get it out of me. I don't want to die. So you go to the doctor and you put your trust in them to heal you physically. And I got to say, my doctors were amazing. I'm so appreciative of all that they've done for me. And so you go through that physical process, these hurdles. It's exhausting, and you just feel like your body and your mind is just attacked physically because of all that it has to endure. But it saved my life. It lowered my risk of of having cancer from the 80s all the way down to below 10. That's huge. But then it's almost like afterwards, you know, you're hit by this wrecking ball, and then you look around, you're like, what on earth did I just survive? That's that trauma, right? That's that coming and reckoning that, hey, I went through this big physical hurdle, but emotionally now I got to kind of try to put those pieces back together. And if in life, I always use the metaphor of waves, you know, like it's not like any one of us have been immune to feeling fear or sadness or grief or any of those quote negative emotions. We're human. Of course we have. I've been mad, sad, you know, you name it. We all have. But if you think about them like waves, normal life, they're gentle waves. They hit you, they wash away. They hit you and they wash away. But when you have a big medical, physical trauma that happens to you, it's no longer those little waves of emotion. It's that giant tsunami that grabs you and yanks you out to the depths of the ocean. And I like to say, does a good old alligator roll for good measure, gets you disoriented, right? It's emotionally wearing as well. And then it becomes the processing through, now what? Who am I? Who am I physically? Who am I emotionally? Like, and everybody has their own triggers. Some people, it's the actual physical loss of their body due to having to remove the cancer. Some it's just grief is triggered by loss, but maybe it's not that particular loss that's affecting somebody else. Maybe it's their loss of health, their loss of sense of safety, that hypervigilance where you're always looking over your shoulder, like is it going to happen again? You know, that learning to come to terms with they would always say in counseling, you have to let go of the things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can. And to really work towards helping heal that emotional piece, finding ways to do that is important. And therapy really can help.
So it's almost surviving survivorship, right?
Yeah. Well, and I like to say too, like, yeah. So some people say, you know, there's a whole survivorship bit, but sometimes it's interlaced in between. It depends on the person. Like sometimes you're like fighting this physical battle and you're on that fight or flight. And then maybe you have a lull and the emotional wave comes in, right? It's like some people, they're on the fight and flight the whole way. And then they get to the end of survivorship and then they're hit with the tsunami of the emotions. Because one person told me once that that's when you're safe to feel. So once you feel like you've made it through and you're okay, now I'm allowed to feel, that's when it all hits you. But that's not how it works for everybody. It's not always survivorship. Sometimes it's through the process. Like, okay, I'm okay now. Oh, no, I'm not. Like good days, bad days, up and down. Like it depends. It's like that emotional piece can be infused throughout the whole process, or it could hit largely at the end. That part is different from people to people.
Right. That makes sense. You really, for somebody that's newly diagnosed, you guys kind of have the entire process spelled out. That beginning part, you guys do peer-to-peer mentorship, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we actually partner with an organization to do that. I'm a peer counselor through them. So if somebody is connecting with me, of course, I'll talk to anybody and help them through that. But there's a program, it's ABCD. It's also free. And we have links to them on our website as well. So if somebody does want to have a peer mentor, what's great about this partnership is that, it'll match you with somebody who is got a similar diagnosis to you. So I say diagnosis, something that's important to you. Maybe it's, okay, we had the same, whether it was triple negative or triple positive, or whether or not you're having the same surgeries, lumpectomy, or you have to have chemo, or maybe it's life stage. Maybe because somebody who is younger, 36, and has 2 little kids at home is going to have very different life needs than somebody who just retired, right? They were looking to retire. They wanted to go travel the world. And now this is getting in my way. They're going to have a different set of needs to people to discuss things with than somebody who is having kids. But both are important. They're just different needs. So this organization that we partner with, ABCD, they will do an intake and they will consider all the things that are important to you and match you with somebody. And the other thing that I absolutely love about it is that the mentors, and again, I went through the training with them, and one of their mentors, we're so excited to partner with them. The mentors are not just Joe Schmo off the street, right? Like, because you do have to be careful. People will say some crazy things out there, and you don't want to have a mentor that's just going to be there, go rub kale on it and you'll be good to go, right? Like, you want somebody who's going to listen and they can give their opinions and well, for me, this happened, but not giving medical advice. That's important, right? But they can help you come up with questions to talk to your providers about so that you can have the best information that you need to make decisions for your own body. So we're really excited. Again, that partnership that's matched up on our website too, and that's through we work closely with ABCD on that.
Amazing. So if someone's newly diagnosed, they can be matched through ABCD and your partnership with them. During treatment, you guys provide a lot of financial assistance as far as rides, paying for gas money, different things like that. You also have chemotherapy bags. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we do. We partner with the hospitals, and so we deliver them once or twice a year, where we will put together either chemo bags or mastectomy bags and deliver them to the hospital for patients at that time. Things that survivors have given tips of things that are helpful that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think about. One that I always go to is Sour Patch Kids. Like, somebody okay, what are Sour Patch Kids gonna do, right? But if you have your port and they access the port, a lot of times it can send this very metallic taste up to your mouth, and it becomes it makes people feel very sick, like they don't like it, right? So the little trick on the street is, hey, if you suck on some hard candy or Sour Patch Kids or something that has like a very strong flavor like that, when they're doing that, then you won't notice it as much. Great. Like, throw it in the bag, right? Like little tricks like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, you've got the one-on-one peer mentorship for newly diagnosed. Then you've got chemo bags and the financial assistance, whether it's rides, groceries, what have you. People going through treatment. Then you provide therapy for people going through treatment or recovering, any part there. Then there's the survivorship piece. You also kind of have the disco nights. Can you tell me about your annual disco night?
So our Shine the Light Disco Night is one of our signature events. It's annual. We've done it every year since we've been founded. And we have survivors in the area that are our models. And so we really take a moment to spoil them, to celebrate, hey, like, what is it that makes you beautiful, right? And that's actually another piece. I'll talk about that here in a second, our photography thing. But we want our survivors to recognize that true beauty isn't in any wrinkle or lack thereof or scar or lack thereof. What makes us beautiful is the fact that we own our bodies. Your body is the vessel that carries you through life, and it should be celebrated. That makes it one of the most beautiful things, is because it carries you, right? And it hasn't betrayed you. Sometimes we get mad at it and we might think that it has because of what we're having to go through, but the fact that it continues to bring us through each day, that is beautiful. And we should celebrate and own that, no matter the wrinkles, no matter the scars that we have, scars physical or scars emotional, right? Like, and so our disco night, we have our survivors come. We have like this glam up. We have volunteer makeup artists and hairstylists that'll come and help them. If they don't have hair at the time, then they'll help with their wigs or scarves and just really make them feel beautiful and empowered. And it's fun. It's all disco themed, right? It's about celebrating and having fun in the midst of something that maybe isn't so fun too, right? That goes back to you can feel all the feels, you can have them, but you can still have moments of joy as well. So we have this event. They are our models. They come out. We talk each one of them out. We end up having a guest speaker as well to give a little educational piece, and then the dance floor opens, and everybody's having a great time. But my favorite moment of the entire evening is after each survivor walks through, then they'll all come out together, and this entire room of 250 people is standing and giving them a standing ovation. And to me, that is so symbolic and beautiful. It says to every survivor in that room, because that you're not alone, that Savannah has you, that we're supporting you. Because in that room are their friends, their family, their doctors, nurses, like the entire support community is there lifting them up. Hey, you may have to be the one to walk this walk, but you don't have to do it alone. We're here to lift you up and support you. And so to me, that is really powerful. And in the whole process too is, it's one of our biggest fundraisers. So it's supporting our patients while raising funds that will allow us to get patients to go to counseling, to have that hardship support funds. And so we're really excited about that. And I did mention the gallery, the photo gallery. We also have that on display at the disco. What that is we started it's called Reframing Beauty, right? I talked about what does it make us, what does it mean to be beautiful? So we did start an initiative of, well, let's shift, let's reframe what beauty is. And so we offered some photography sessions for breast cancer patients in various stages, right? Either just diagnosed or in the midst of it or even at the end, and at various diagnoses types. And they had this photo session, and the point of this project was twofold. The first prong was to provide that breast cancer patient with the ability to take a deep breath, to come in and own themselves. My husband, that's one of the things that he had done for me, which is why it was so transformative. I didn't feel pretty at all. But when I was outside and I felt very grounded, I could let the world swirl around me and come back into ownership of myself and really recognize that I owned me. And that was powerful and that was beautiful. And so that's the first prong approach, is giving these women that experience to step into themselves again. And the second prong approach is we've created from these photos with their permission, a gallery. It's a traveling gallery. We put it up every year. It's actually on our website too. People can visit it digitally. But each participant also comes up with a word or a phrase that's inspiring. Like one is hope in deep waters. And so it's the photo shoot is of her in the water, and they're gorgeous photos. And so when you put all of these together and you have this gallery of all of these gorgeous women at different stages of diagnoses with their messages and what they want the world to know. One survivor, in looking at the gallery, said it's like a giant hug. It's a giant hug from other survivors. It's saying, you know what? You're beautiful too. All of these things that you see and all of these people and all of these photos, it's in you, right? And so that's the second prong approach, is letting other people be able to view and see that gallery so that they can tap in and find it in themselves.
That's a incredible initiative. I think that's just amazing and beautiful. And I can't imagine how many lives even that one initiative has changed. The overall mission of Keepers of the Flame, what do you want if somebody has never heard of you guys, and they're wondering if they should get involved, become a member, anything along those lines? What do you want them to know about Keepers of the Flame?
Well, our tagline is always, and this is our website, right? Together we weather. It's togetherweweather.org. And the reason is, to answer your question, is that you're not alone. my cat screaming in the background. Sorry.
That's okay.
But the idea is that together we weather the storm, right? You're not alone. For people that are going through it, right, goes back to you may have to be the one to walk it, but you don't have to do it alone, because together we're here to lift you up and support you. If you're looking to get involved, again, it's not one big whoosh moment that changes the world. What changes the world is when these little things come together piece by piece, these little flickers of light. And that's back to that together, right? If you have, an hour to give, if you have even 30 minutes to give, if you have a special talent that you want to share, or you want to make a donation, all of those little things, those little tiny flickers of light help us come together to help breast cancer patients weather their storms. And every little bit of it counts. Every little bit of it matters. So yes, please, I encourage you to reach out, visit our website, even sharing it with somebody else and saying, hey, I heard of this. Let me give you the website. Go and check out the podcast. Listen to this resilience curriculum. Contact this email. See if you can get support this way. Like, just being able to even do that is helping put flickers of light out there so that somebody going through it doesn't feel alone.
Joyce, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.